All right, so this one is something constructive for the ladies. Um, meant in the most loving and appreciative way possible. Okay. Um, I don't really get the opportunity to get this out to people often, but I've repeated it over and over in the years because it just seems like people just don't get it. But it's good that I'm doing this here and now to get it out there. But um, given things such as the divorce rate, breakup rate, and stuff and whatnot, it's very and the reasons for these things. Honestly, in reality, the biggest driver for these things are economic reasons and stuff. Financial stress is probably the most recurrent, strongest, most destructive force in relationships and stuff, undermining the sanity of everybody and stuff, among many other things. Um, yeah, human physiology has a very interesting way of fighting off things that don't agree with it. Okay, so yeah, we can chalk up a lot of these failures of relationships to, you know, what leaders with who are very reckless and irresponsible with their power are doing. So um, yeah. So here we go. Let's go into this. Is why a lot of women can't get or let alone keep a good man. Okay, and a lot can mean 75%. A lot can mean 25%. Um, the exact percentage uh, hasn't really been like universally established and stuff, but it, you know, there's a palpable number. Okay. Now, I've met probably every kind of woman several times at this point. Women are generally very good at making a man feel invited into a relationship. This is actually a key mechanism in bond formation, even in very short-term bonds in the form of one-night stands. But so it varies based on time frame. Like based on time frame, it's you see the same essential detail and stuff. They're essentially very good at making a man feel invited into a relationship. Okay. Um, they develop this capacity earlier and more rapidly and stuff. Uh, but it's in all levels of relationships. However, what a lot of women are not good at is carry through, sparking initiation or initiative. A lot of women just figuratively want the ground to rise to meet their feet when sometimes it gets a better result to do or say something effective. Most women in most marriages will not see these marriages develop to their happiest, most sustainable form and last for reasons that are partly done by them. Good men exist, they are just in very small percentage and count. Very consistent with the fact that most people are actually garbage, and they are. Most people are garbage. I'll explain why in further videos. Good men exist, they are just in very small percentage and count. Um, oh, that's just the same bullet. By the way, none of this is personally directed. If this comes off as misogynistic or personally attacking in any way, it's not being read in the semantic way it is meant, okay? I say what I mean what I say, but I'm open to being corrected if I have a poor recollection of the facts and stuff. I don't have all of the facts to cover the surface of this and stuff, but I have plenty, okay? Um, and I have plenty of experience to back it up too. So let's go into the reasons here. Misandry, okay? You know, in many women, there's like this psychological mechanism that masculinity is automatically bad, automatically inferior and stuff. Is it perfect? No, but the misandry factor, like the personal misandry, so not systemic misandry, um, it it's there. Um, Systemic misandry is something else we can talk about, which is a reality for many places and time periods. Um, Gynocracy. See, gender is not supposed to be a criteria for domination and stuff. It's just not. That's what history has been screaming at us over and over for. You know, um, having no appreciation for love. And good men have the capacity to really love. You know, and they can love very intensely, and that's fine. That's not a bad thing. That can that can be a very overwhelming force and stuff, but love is a very powerful thing. That's the thing. A lot of publications try to demonize this behavior and stuff, but this is actually part of the vital essence of life. It's as necessary as air or water and stuff, and it is as foundational and developmental to people as anything else. Okay, everybody needs love. in the general case and stuff. So a lot of people don't deserve it. Maybe 25% of people don't deserve love. Okay, around that number, around that percentage. Not understanding this, marriage might not last, but real love is eternal. Okay, marriage might not even be a reality, but you understand, a real love is eternal and stuff. So even if you realistically cannot get married, or for financial reasons or whatever, or because the institution of marriage doesn't work for you, or you have this, often the very justified feminist um, critique of the institution of marriage and stuff in your mind and stuff. It real love is still eternal. Doesn't matter. So there's that. Now, oh yeah, also not understanding what real love is and stuff. You know, um, Love is not a precursor to disease or destruction. Among many other things, it is a developer. It is the opposite of disease and destruction. Okay? You understand? So, no sense of investigation or profiling. When women are getting to know a guy, they don't know how to get to know him. They don't know what to look for and stuff. But they also look at everything sometimes. It's weird. It really does vary based on the women and stuff. But most of the time, I see that women have no fucking clue who's a good guy and who is not and stuff. It's actually um, usually a shit show. And I know I'm kind of smirking right now and stuff, but uh, in 2026, you think people will learn from history and from their past and stuff, but people don't for some reason. I've seen, you know, so many broken-hearted women and stuff, uh, women that had their heart that had their hearts crushed, or were deliberately mentally abused or psychologically abused, physically abused and stuff, um, or had their finances exploited and stuff. Women that were, just um, being were just being used as a side piece and stuff, even though they were the wife or whatever, or they were the girlfriend, and they kind of fell for it and stuff, because they just don't know how to they don't know how to get to know guys that they date. Um, Consensus viewing, unresolved emotional baggage, and trained viewing and stuff. Yeah, these things are actually in all genders. This is human nature. Fearfulness, stuff. Yeah. If anything cripples a person's functionality, it's being scared. There. Not knowing how to tie themselves together with the right man. Yeah. It's like, okay, now you're in the relationship. So, like, for example, like, a woman often finds herself in a relationship. She doesn't know how to create the bond and stuff. It. She just doesn't stuff, and it shows in the statistics on marriages between women now too and stuff. They just don't know, or they just don't want it or something. Maybe a lot of the time, and this is often true and stuff. They're the concept of love is just too wrong, too toxic. Sometimes it is. If love is defined in a certain way, there's many definitions for love. There's one concept. There's like one encapsulation of it and stuff, but there's many definitions. Sex negativity and stuff. Whether you like it or not, sex is very central to relationships. Spreading attention too thin across many people. Yeah. Unrealistic views. Moral inversion. The notion of a good man is completely lost to these chicks, and you can ask any woman who ended up being beaten, cheated on, psychologically abused, or raped by her man, and about 95% of sexual assaults are from someone the person was very close to and knew well. And a large percentage of women will experience this in a very long-term relationship. What? Oh, experience this in a very long-term relationship. Many men, especially men of poor psychological development, are very abusive. Okay. And they tell on themselves when they get drunk too. It's all about they talk about the things that they did, and they do. Too high or too short a time preference. Too high or too short a time preference. Yeah. Shitty friends. Women usually have the one friend that cannot stand to see their friend be happy because she has a good man. Then there's a friend that always tries to sleep with their boyfriend or husband. Then there's a friend that makes all of their friends feel like shit about themselves. The list of shitty friends just goes on, and it's like a pathogen that just eats the foundation of society. So there you go. So human nature for you. Um, Human flaws. A lot of these flaws are self-developed tendencies to lie, become aggressors, etc. Um, Heavy or excessively long reliance on chemical substance use. Yeah. Nagging, and that includes alcohols, certain psychiatric drugs and stuff. Nagging, interrupting, taking too much time, or repeating yourself too much. Yeah. That drives everybody crazy. Okay, not just men. Lack of sensitivity to circumstance. A lot of women get too caught up in the emotional connection of people, not realizing how a circumstance can be harmful. Did I even finish this? Oh yeah, it's a lot of women get too caught up in the emotional connection and too caught up with people, not realizing how a circumstance can be a harmful or too undesirable of a factor and stuff. You know, succumbing to primitive drives. Humans are supposed to be mind, soul, and spirit above all else, but these things determine the direction of most of human behavior, the propensity for evil, among so many other things. You know, overeating or so these are all like these tempting things that just make a person horrible. You know, those primal drives that come from the reptilian and mammalian brain and stuff, that's what hinders human evolution. So, unnecessarily initiating conflict or division. This is even prevalent in woman-woman relationships. In lesbian marriages, they have a very high divorce rate because they tiff too much, okay? You understand? Um, Lack of preparation, not making things easy on themselves. Women will often burden themselves with other people's situations before sorting their own problems out just because they are compelled to. Poor handling of misunderstandings. The way male psychology is structured makes us understand things in a certain way. If you don't know how to clarify your intent and what you mean, then communication fails, ladies. Do you understand? A lot of times you think you're saying something and stuff, or you think we should know something, but it's not actually commonly shared, you know, information. Come on. Lack of class. Ladies, education manners matter. You need to start reading good books, okay? Low class, and you know, here's some low class values that hold back someone's personal development. It's called, you know, I'm kind of rushed. I kind of rushed through this one and stuff. I didn't finish it. You know, but you know, there are clearly values of people of very low and poor character that hold back their personal development, which I talked about. This is now poor self-care. This is probably the most prevalent. A lot of women avoid exercising or keeping to a clean diet regularly, which ends up undermining their relationships. They won't tell their man that they wish to go exercising in his vicinity, for example. You know, misreading male-focusing behavior. Males often have hobbies they obsess over because their brains are wired like that. That is not a personal attack, and a lot of women don't understand that. Okay. Not overcoming sentimental aversions to make him happy. A lot of women, for reasons good and bad, have aversions to things like oral sex, but this is often one of the most crucial things for men's mental health. Eventually, we dump a woman or withdraw for not doing what another woman will do. And a lot of the time, that other woman is a lot nicer. Okay? Um, Misuse of free time. Yeah. Ruining their husband, fiance, or boyfriend's hobby. Okay? Tolerating infidelity. Honestly, sometimes a woman has to check a man and say, no, you are not going to that club tonight because I know some horny sluts are there. You're going to stay your ass home and be the man you're supposed to be for me. More or less, you know, that's what she should say and stuff. And them's the breaks. You know, ladies, if you can't check your man for inappropriate behavior, you're not doing enough good in your life. Do you understand? You're just not. You've taken your hands off the reins. Okay? Not understanding that what you want, what you urge to say, etc., is often wrong or makes no sense. Okay? No sense of mutually beneficial compromise. No sense of privacy. Most women want to make the relationship displayed to the world and then see the relationship destroyed by nosy or envious people. Mothers, the only people that need to know you have children, facts about your children, or where they are, or teenagers, are you, the Department of Justice, Department of Education, Department of Health. Because a lot of people Even people connected with your employer will do what is sometimes very permanently twisting mental and physical harm to a child or teenager. Okay, so what you hold most dear is not meant to be public information in any sense of it and stuff, unless it is a crucial security matter and stuff. Okay, ladies, the fact that you try to show off your husband to the world and stuff, sometimes your boyfriend, your fiance, is why a lot of problems occur. Okay, and then you're not giving yourself the time and tempo to manage a relationship like you should, and so, like, or manage your end of the relationship like you should. Okay, it takes two. All right, treating anybody trusting anybody for no logical reason. I know women that were trapped with a crazy sociopathic narcissist boyfriend for years, like 5, 6, 8 years, because they thought he was a nice guy with no idea of how to think about it. Okay, not exchanging jokes and laughs or sharing the activity. Okay, if you don't do it, it's this is what happens and stuff. I'm not saying you need to like do the extra emotional labor and stuff. I would not, I would not wish that for most people, but this is the case. Okay, um, leading on the wrong ones. The men that don't leave you alone, and for example, one of many things. Not giving good men time to arc like they need to. People take time, patience, humility, investment, etc., before they become strong, capable, and equipped and stuff. Sometimes that process gets way uglier and harder before things become amazing. It's worth it. Do you understand? You know, if your boyfriend or fiance or whatever has a broken hand and stuff, and or whatever, and he's all in pieces over it, that's not a good enough reason to leave him. Okay, or to make life harder for him and stuff. You got to be patient. Provided he's a good man and stuff. I'd, he probably isn't. Let's be real, ladies. Okay, let's be real. Not being willing to tell him what he's missing. No sense of how to motivate him, make him feel good about himself, etc. A lot of treating, a lot of treating men correctly is stroking our egos. Do you get it? In the many different ways. All right. Um, bringing political, mass media, commercial, religious influence into the relationship, and then not noticing or agreeing to do something about it. Okay. You're both responsible for that. At least one out of you two has to be responsible for keeping things together, okay? Reaching for men they can't have, ignoring great men that will probably do anything for them, okay? That's a bad habit. You do a lot of mental and psychological harm to good men to a good guy that loves you and stuff. That that is going to complete you and stuff. Um or just just a better guy and stuff when you do this and stuff, um or not being straight up in a nice way. Sometimes all you have to tell a man to let a man know that is that he needs to develop more as a person or do better in life and that he can trust you and maybe he does it. Okay? Not knowing how to speak men's language or let your man know you're speaking womanese. A lot of men don't notice and get traction on these subtle communication shifts, okay? And men, not all communication is semantic, okay, with ladies and stuff. They switch up in the many different ways a lot. You gotta, be sharp with this shit. Um, Constantly adding to his work. We all have enough work. We don't need more. Okay? Yeah, it's true. Not letting him think you agree with him in an argument. The male drive to lead to dominate is natural and often a positive indicator when he is qualified, but it's not always right. Okay? This is an example of toxic masculinity that we're talking about. Okay? Um, which is another topic which is important in sociology and stuff. Not keeping a made up mind after an agreement. Yeah. Not knowing how to raise boys or treat a man. Ladies, many of you will end up giving birth to boys. Okay? Cisgendered, masculine boys. And yeah. Or letting him use certain substances. So if anything gets the ball rolling in the wrong direction, it is alcohol dependency, smoking, etc. An unhealthy person has an unhealthy personality. Okay? Women should be encouraging their men to get on non-toxic alcohol or tobacco substitutes. And by the way, if he's on certain substances, he's probably going to have problems getting his dick up too. Okay, so so men who are watching this, you have to know that too. All right. And oh, here we go. Kicking him out of his healthcare plan. Okay, men are not stupid in this respect. We know when our woman is making us sick. Okay, we know it. We're not stupid. And you know, it's like it says in the Bible, my God is a vengeful God. Do you understand? And stuff. So I don't want anybody to think that they get away with this type of thing, because in actuality they don't. Somebody always finds out. Okay. But yeah, um, not to like take the religious perspective and stuff, but like it's a good proverbial type thing. Okay. Um, Now, as for the Bible and stuff, I mean, I know I mentioned like how religious perspectives damage relationships. Yeah, because the Bible um, says some things that are very unfair and harsh to women. It doesn't really give women a chance to say and do the right thing. You know, um, it, it's just how it is. But yeah,